bloody listen to them. 7 in a row. Let me just check this. I think that's the 14th title for the Crusaders since 1998. That's the 12th full Super Rugby title. Then in 2020, it was just the New Zealand competition. And then in 2021, there's the New Zealand competition, which they won. But then the Australian competition, they missed out on points differential. You know all this, Marshy. Welcome back, mate. You must be feeling delighted.
Yeah, thanks, Debs. Absolutely. And what a fantastic game, first and foremost. You know, the Chiefs really brought a hefty challenge to the Crusaders, and equally incredibly satisfying for Scott Robertson, you know, the likes of Sam White, Richie Mo'unga, Lester Fainganuku, Jack Goodhue, you know, guys that have put a lot into that jersey to be able to go out on such a high note.
Okay, let us start with Razor, you know, because now he goes on to the All Blacks job. It was the perfect send-off for him. Once again, he deflects everything. I love this guy. I love what he brings to the game. Justin, I also think he's a very, very clever coach in that, I'm not going to call them antics, but the way that he behaves, some of his press conferences and things, I know he's deflecting from the players. He creates a bit of attention around himself. I believe that he actually is probably a different presence when he's just in the presence of those players.
Oh, absolutely. And you can see that the players, they want to play for the jersey first and foremost. They want to play for their teammates. But equally, when you've got a coach like that brings out the best in players, they want to play for him as well. And I think that's the recipe that he's managed to create in the time that he's been to the Crusaders. They were still a force to be reckoned with when Todd Blackadder had them, but just hadn't, you know, managed to get to that final and win it. They'd been to a final and lost it. They were successful enough, but Razor just tapped in to that inner person within the Crusaders. He brought back a little bit of the old school values that he thought that had gone missing, and he just is a coach that, yeah, you're right. He's quite happy to take all of the attention. He's quite happy to deflect when he needs to. But most importantly, he knows how to get the job done. And he knows how to get the players in the right headspace, particularly for finals rugby.
Justin, the reason that we have you on, you're an 81 Test veteran of the All Blacks. You've been to the mountaintop. You've climbed all of that. You know. So when you talk about he knows how to get inside the players, just in your own experience of coaches you've worked with and that, what is that exactly? Tell us something, mate, that we don't know. How does a coach do that?
Well, basically, he's got to get the players believing, and he's got to get them out of bed every day. It's an easy recipe to get a rugby player to be up for a semi-final or a final, but from week to week, getting them out of bed to get to training, to think about, the process of getting through that regularly, you have to create an environment that makes them want to do that. And that's what Razor does. He's got this ability for them to be excited about coming to work, regularly changing the picture for them, continually setting goals and theming weeks, theming a week where they're playing the Blues, tapping back into history, looking at what the players can galvanise around for that working week so that they are up for every single minute that they are putting that jersey on, regardless of playing. And, he is able to do that and treat each individual in a way that they just want to go out and train and play as a Crusader.
That final, cracking game, you were so right. It was befitting of a final. You wanted it to be tight and tense. You wanted it to come down to moments. I like the fact there's talking points and a bit of controversy. You yourself, though, at what stage did you feel it was starting to turn for the Crusaders in their favour?
I think in that last quarter, up until the end, the game was really still in the balance. And to be fair, at no point were the Crusaders really safe. When you've got the attacking qualities that the Chiefs do, they had the ability always to break out from any part of the field. But in that last quarter, what I really noticed significantly was the way that the Crusaders' defence lifted. They were getting a lot of change out of their ruck work the whole game. I thought they were really accurate in that department, and they'd obviously done their homework. It is an area that they had lost in the two previous games. I talked to Razor after the final, and he said, look, we really targeted the breakdown.
Yes.
We felt that they were much superior to us in the two games previous, and it was quite evident that they were really smart there. But defensively, they still got opened up. But in that last quarter, I just saw that belief come into them, and a lot of those senior players really stood up. They puffed their chest out, and they made every single tackle. They got up and they made another, and they made another. That's when I felt that Crusaders culture, that ability to win a final, you could just see it within the players that they knew they could get the job done.
Significant that you mentioned the breakdowns, and Razor saying that the call was Ajax, which is to keep it clean. We spoke with Todd Blackett, I think it was Thursday last week, mate, and one of the things that he pointed out, and this is why we have you guys on, because you see things that we don't see. He said that the fundamental difference he noticed this year was the lack of penalties being conceded by Scott Barrett and Tom Christie at the breakdown. If you go back to last year, remember the Crusaders always criticised about this, about the professionalism. They might let 3 or 4 go in a row. This time, especially in that last 15 minutes, no conceding of any penalties at the breakdown. That is discipline, mate.
It is, and that's not easy to do, particularly when you're under pressure, and you can be inaccurate and you can get things wrong, but the quality of the way that they approached that breakdown the entire game showed that they've done their homework, which goes all the way back again to coaching and thinking about an area where you feel you can put the opposition under pressure and make them hurt. And to be honest, the Chiefs hurt themselves. The Crusaders were incredibly accurate. The Chiefs' entry wasn't as good as what it should be. They got pinged quite a few times for ill discipline at the breakdown, and quite ultimately it cost them basically the match, because that got them down to 14 men 3 times in the game because of inaccuracies. 2 of them were at the breakdown. They conceded a lot of penalties there, and it enabled the Crusaders to dictate the game. And you're absolutely right. The way that they did it without conceding penalties, they lifted their accuracy. Players that have been ill-disciplined in the past have rectified that.
How do I say this nicely? Were you pooing bricks when Damien McKenzie caught that one off the back and went sprinting through?
Oh, look, I was obviously very aware at the time, should they go out by the margin that they could have if that try had been awarded, it would have been a bit of a mountain to climb. Not that the Crusaders weren't capable of doing that. They still have method. They still know when they get into certain areas, they can put the opposition under pressure, make them concede penalties and then hurt them with their rolling maul. But it would have been a much more difficult game to climb back into. Yeah, absolutely. Look, first and foremost, mate, I thought it was an outstanding try. It was legal.
Well, I mean, shite.
It was pretty sensational, wasn't it? Yeah, and it was. I actually was applauding. I was sitting there applauding. I had, I don't know, the whole stand in front of me. We're looking up as well, and they could see that I was, I was appreciative of high quality, quality finishing. But unfortunately for them, it wasn't legal, and ultimately it allowed the Crusaders again to stay in the fight.
A lot has been said about the booing, the crowd reaction, and that. And I know that Will Jordan said afterwards something along the lines that he hadn't seen anything like. Look, I applaud the Hamiton crowd for giving it to you guys, giving it to the Crusaders. That's the whole point of it. The thing is, though, mate, but let's talk about the refs separately to this, because I didn't like that at the end. But that's just me. But you've been in these situations where you've won away from home. I mean, you went to Africa in '99 and won a semi, then had to go down party at Tony Brown's place. What is it about just that mentality when the whole crowd's against you like that? Why do you like it so much, you Christchurch lot?
Well, I think, mate, throughout the season, when we've been chatting, and I've said this regularly, I've said, often on this show that the way that the season's unfolding, it looks very much like the Chiefs are going to sit on top of the pedestal. They're going to get a home semi and a home final. And I said, really, the Crusaders, by their own fault and an admission that they dropped the Endrua game, which ultimately probably cost them an opportunity to get a final at home, I deep down thought that it'll be the perfect storm for them, because the Chiefs are on fire. They're pretty much unbeaten, only dropping one game. All the pressure will be on them. They will finish top of the log. They're a great team. They've beaten the Crusaders twice. It's the perfect recipe for that Crusaders culture to just sneak into town and ambush the final. And it's what we do. It's what Crusaders do. It's that underdog tag that started all the way back in 1998 when we weren't expected to win our first 3 finals simply because the other sides were better organised. They probably had more talent. But that's what makes Crusaders tick, going into that environment with that crowd. Yes, they're going to boo you. Yes, the cowbells are going to go. And that's perfect because you use that to motivate you. And you are the one without the pressure. The other team is the one with 30,000 people watching them, expecting them to win a final. And you can sneak into town and pull their pants down if you're good enough.
So, and you love the sound of silence. You love the cowbells going quiet and all of that.
Oh, yeah. And that's it. That's what you listen for, And when they are clanging and banging, they think that it's putting you off. All it's doing is getting you up off the ground again and again and again. And you just say, when those cowbells are going, boys, we just use them as motivation to silence them eventually. And then we know we've got the job done.
Justin Marshall is with us. In terms of booing the referees, listen, my attitude has always been, if people pays their money and they go along, I'm not a booer, although I have been. I'll boo Liverpool. Actually, I am a booer. Shit, what am I saying? I'm a booer. But when it comes to the referee afterwards in the presentation, okay, I don't like that kind of stuff because I actually didn't think that Ben O'Keefe had a bad game. And yes, the forward pass was forward, but also Anton should have had a red card because at the Rugby World Cup, that is a blatant red card. And we've got to learn this, right? Mm-hmm. But just in terms of booing the referee, where do you sit with that?
Yeah, no, I think it's incredibly inappropriate, and there's no place for it in the game. You know, the guys out there are just doing their job as the players are, and for them to be disrespected like that, there's just, I've got no time for people that are like that, and they have no respect for the game when they're booing in that capacity. I certainly felt that, yes, they probably felt that on the night they could have felt aggrieved that they were probably on the wrong side of the referee, but that was because their discipline left them on the wrong side of the referee. He had no choice but to keep pinging them because of the pressure the Crusaders were putting on them. You know, ultimately, yes, they won the penalty count. Ultimately, yes, he didn't get that forward pass. But equally, like you said, you know, Anton Leonard-Brown shouldn't have even been on the field. So, you know, you win some, you lose some. But I thought Ben O'Keefe refereed the final incredibly well. He's a very good referee. He's the best in the world. He's the best in New Zealand. He's going to the Rugby World Cup. He doesn't get things wrong. He was only refereeing what he was seeing, and what he was seeing was the Chiefs' ill discipline. It's not his fault for penalising a team that is not accurate enough at the breakdown in particular. You're going to miss the odd little thing. Look, everybody's talked about the forward pass, but you know, you see these things crop up in games, and you've just got to move on. You can't let that be a part of it, and it's not entirely his fault either. There are two others assisting him.
We're talking to Colin Mansbridge a little later on, and when we spoke to him earlier this morning getting it organised, he said he's a sore head. I love hearing that, mate. I love hearing the fact that, look, if you can't go out and you can't get loose and you can't get a bit silly, as long as there's no one around taking pictures of you and then having, you know, and exposing all of that, behind closed doors you're allowed to party however the hell you want. I mean, I'm fully in favour of it.
Oh, absolutely. You know, like these players go through an incredible amount of pressure, and they stay really disciplined throughout the course of the year. Yes, they'll drop the odd beer after games and significant games when people have milestones. And yes, you've got to switch off once you've played that game and relax. But when you climb a mountain like the one that they climbed, of course you've got to be able to go out and express your excitement and enjoy yourself. And I don't have any problem with the way that they go about celebrating having won in such a historic final. And players that are leaving, you know, you want to have a beer with them as well. And I'll give you the tip, Marty. It won't just go on for one day. No. It'll be 3.
Great. Great. Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect, mate. I'll tell you, as I say, I absolutely applaud it. And I'm glad that the Crusaders have a culture as well where not everyone's on a phone filming everything as well, because there's a lot of it we don't want to see. I've got 3 more questions and then we'll let you go. Sam Whitelock, and we've been talking about this all year. You know, this, I've got to I can only play 5 games, load of bollocks, and then I've got to have a rest. I know he's coming off 2 weeks. Here's a guy with an Achilles heel injury, and at the 70-minute mark, he was smashing into Brodie Retallick, and I was looking at the two of them going, go on, son. This is Fraser and Ali, 15 rounds, and we're still smacking each other. I was standing and applauding.
Yeah, me too. And that's the engine that Sam Whitelock possesses, isn't it? And equally so does Brodie Retallick. But you know, that type of player is exactly what the Crusaders, when you want to ask about culture and people are trying to tap into the DNA, and they go, what is this word culture? What are the Crusaders able to tap into that no other team can? Just stand Sam Whitelock in front of you in his Crusaders kit and look at him, and that is what a Crusaders man is, and that is what the culture is about. That was an incredible performance for a guy that hadn't been playing. But no one was surprised, were they? Because that's the type of player and the type of man that he is.
I just expected of him. That's all I expect. I only expect that. Okay, 2 quick questions. So how the hell does Rob Penny follow this?
Yeah, good luck, isn't it? You know, like the good thing is he's a Crusader man. He's a Canterbury man. He knows what it's about. He's been involved in the system before. He certainly will inherit a lot of very positive, excited players, albeit he'll be missing some really key ones. But what Scott Robertson has done for him is groundwork below what he's currently got as All Blacks. And he's turned other players, like Tamati Williams, for example, into All Blacks. And so Rob Penny will get access to those players. You know, Dallas McLeod, Fergus Burke, these guys have got plenty of game time. Shea Fihaki, Dominic Gardner. He's got good cattle to work with.
Go on. Finally, then, and can Razor, and this is our big question, is it? Can Razor, and I know that I'm not in any way being disrespectful to Foz and everyone else that's the coach, but we're all asking the same question. You know, could he do this to this bunch of All Black players? What is he capable of doing as an All Black coach? I mean, that's just an answer we don't know yet, but wow, what a future we have.
Yeah, absolutely. And what he wants to be able to do is create what he's been able to create with the Crusaders, with the All Blacks. Because let's face it, the Crusaders, yes, have great history, but the All Blacks have a hell of a lot more.
Yeah,
mate.
true.
We have an incredible, historic jersey there that I know that Scott Robertson will be just absolutely itching to tap into and get the best out of our All Blacks and continue to enhance our history and do things possibly that other All Blacks haven't done. That's what gets him out of bed every day, and that's really exciting for us in the All Black jersey post-Rugby World Cup that he's got control of being able to do that.
Awesome coverage every Monday throughout this comp. Now we get into the All Blacks, mate. I can't wait.
Me too. Looking forward to it, mate. Yep, Argentina, bring it on.
Okay, Justin. Thanks so much. Justin Marshall, 81 tests for the All Blacks. He was on the sideline in Hamiton. And the Crusaders do it again after they did it last year and the year before that and the one before that, the one before that, the one before that, and the one before that. Their 14th title, ladies and gentlemen.
Devlin.